Hey, it's the Brew City Rider. Welcome to the next installment of the BCR Garage Series. Today, we're going to change the fluids in all three holes of my 1988 Harley Softail Custom. Right there. What you're going to need to do this job is you're going to need your fluids, whatever you choose to use. I'm going with Maxima Racing Oils V-Twin engine oil change in a box. Got it super cheap off Amazon for about 55 bucks. You should have your owner's manual or a service manual, but really the owner's manual is actually better for this job. It gives you all the capacities and torque values, and neither of those documents have good pictures of your drain plugs, so you may need to do a little more research on that, but I'll for your particular bike, but I'll show you where they are on my bike. Got to have some shop towels, of course, some disposable gloves, a Harley oil filter wrench or aftermarket. Actually, in this oil change box, I'm going to be putting on a K&N oil filter with a nut on the end. So if you have one of those, you won't need this particular wrench here. You'll need some type of thread sealant. You'll need a inch-pound torque wrench, a 6-inch socket extension. You'll need a 3/16 inch hex socket for your drain plugs, and then you'll need a 5/32 hex socket with a 3/8 to 1/4 inch adapter so it can fit on your inch-pound torque wrench. 3/8 inch hex key for your transmission drain plug, ratchet, a long screwdriver to access the clamp on your oil drain tube, and then you'll need a funnel, and these come in handy. This is a 8-ounce measuring cup. The transmission on this particular model is only 16 ounces, and so you can either use the measuring window on your oil quarts, or you can use one of those guys. Another thing that comes in handy, and I highly recommend, is the Harley-Davidson oil drain pan. It's only $30-some, holds 10 quarts of oil, has a carry handle, drain spout, vent plug. That's where the oil drains in, and it's got these ridges here so you can put an oil filter on it. It's got a couple of spots here for these plugs, and it's even got a finger grab hole down here for making it easy to tip and drain. It has very low profile, so it'll fit under any bike. Alright, well, let's get the engine warmed up and get cracking. Okay, I got the bike warmed up, and here's my setup. I got my Harbor Freight lift underneath it, Harley drain pan, and my pads. Got it strapped down. Got a board under the rear tire because I had to put the jack towards the front so as not to interfere with my drain plugs. And we're all set to go. You can do this on the side stand if you can get a helper to stand the bike up when necessary. All the fluid levels are checked with the bike level on this particular model. The the crankcase, the chain case, and the tranny. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is drain the oil. There's a C-clamp holding this tube, which is then held in place by a nub on the frame that it slides over. So you just loosen the C-clamp. Okay, that should be loose enough. Yep. And here she comes. There we go. If you get the screwdriver in there just right, it'll hold the drain tube away from your frame. Now that it's draining, I'm going to pop the drain plug and you should see it come out faster. That vents it. Now while that's draining, I'm going to take my 3/8 inch Allen key and loosen the fill plug here, right down there. All right, there's a lot of confusion as to where these Softail tranny drain plugs are, and they did change them from year to year, so you just have to search and check for your particular bike. The service manual and the owner's manual will not do you any good. They don't even show you where it is, at least not for my bike. So on the 1988 Softail Custom, the drain plug is right there, right in the middle, below the transmission side cover, right below it, in the middle. It's a takes a 3/16 inch hex key right there, and there's no torque spec for this either. Basically, when you put it back in, you leave about an 1/8 to a 16th, or a 1/8 to a 1/4 inch of the fastener exposed. Okay, now we're over on the other side of the bike, on the left side, and I'm going to start draining the primary fluid. Okay, I've got my 3/16 hex head socket. And there she comes. So this is the little tiny drain plug for the primary on this bike. It's got a little magnetic tip there. It's shockingly small. So there was some Teflon tape on there, which I'll make sure I get all of it off. And when I put it back on, I'm going to use some liquid thread sealer instead of the tape. Alright, now we go with a 5/32 Allen socket, and we crack the derby cover bolts loose. And on this bike there's only 3 of them, not like the modern bikes that have 5. This has got the full face gasket on it. I got to get something to pop it out. Maybe I can use this. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I've got the drain plug all cleaned off. I got all the old Teflon tape brushed off. I used a little wire brush. I'm going to put some thread sealant on it. This plug is so small it's hard to work with. So I got it about 3/4 around with the thread sealant, which is what you want. You don't want to go all the way around. And I've kept it off the magnet. And it looks like it's good to go. So I'll just wipe off the opening one more time. And put this guy back in. Okay, I got the plug in. Now I'm going to fill it up. On this particular model, you fill it right to the bottom of the opening, and it's supposed to take 1.5 quarts. Actually, that's the capacity. It probably won't take that much. They only give you 1 quart in this oil change kit, but on this model bike, that won't be enough. So I'll top it off with some Mobil 1 synthetic. That looks pretty close. Get a better light on there and check it out. Alright, so it took about 44 ounces. I'm right just under the lip, which is where you want to be on this bike. Full capacity is 48, so it's within 4 ounces of full capacity. So that sounds about right. So now we'll button her up. Alright, so I'm going to reuse this gasket. It looks real good. You can reuse these a bunch of times. Just inspect them real good, make sure they're still sound. So this side obviously goes towards the clutch. So I'm going to turn that around. Lay it on the derby cover. Harley put the top opening for the screw. They made it more of like a triangle shape, so you can actually screw your bolt in there, and it'll stay in. Okay, I'll just get these all hand started. And then I'll torque them down. Alright, they're all finger tight. Okay, the torque spec for the derby cover bolts is 4 to 6 foot-pounds. I'm going to use my inch-pound torque wrench and set it right in the middle, which is 60 inch-pounds. You definitely don't want to over-tighten these. Just double check this one. Yep. Alright, she's torqued down. Alright, now we'll wipe off the drain plug mount. And the hose. Now put the hose back on the plug. Okay. And then tighten up our C-clamp. Alright, she's snug down. Okay, now we're going to take off the oil filter. You can remove this voltage regulator wiring harness if you want, but it's not really in the way. So we're going to put our Harley oil filter wrench in there with our 6-inch extension, like that. And we'll break her free. Okay, she's broke free. Now we should be able to spin her off with our hands. Here we go. We'll clean up the gasket surface and then prepare our new oil filter. Okay, I'm going to replace it with this K&N wrench-off oil filter, model KN170C. These come pre-oiled on the gasket. You can see there's a plastic cover on it. So all we got to do is peel that off and screw it on. Alright, I peeled the plastic off, and if you can see, the gasket's shiny. It's pre-oiled. So now we'll just spin her on. And as soon as the gasket touches, we'll go 1/4 to a 1/2 turn per the Harley manual. Okay, just touched right there. Now I'm going to mark it. There's 1/4. And there's a half turn. That's one oil filter installed. Alright, it's time to put some oil in the oil bag using the Maxima V-Twin engine oil 2050 mineral. This bike holds 3 quarts, so I'm going to start out just by putting 2 quarts in. And then I'll check the level. So I'm going to probably get about 2.5 quarts in here. That'll leave about a half a quart of old oil in the engine. A lot of guys will purge their oil system. In other words, after you put the oil in, like I'm doing here, they'll pull off their return line and they will either run their engine or pull the plug wires and turn the engine over for maybe 20 revolutions to get the old oil out. So you can certainly do that. I decided not to because on this year Softail, it doesn't have reusable oil line fasteners. You have to actually clip them off, and so they obviously didn't intend for you to be purging the system, and the service manual and the owner's manual do not call for purging the system, so I'm not going to, but you can do it if you want. That's quart number 2. So here's the dipstick. There's the high mark and the low mark. You want to be between there. I usually try to go to the middle to 2/3 up to leave room for expansion. So this is a check after 2 quarts of oil. Okay, I'm still low, so I'm going to put in another half quart. Alright, I'm going to start with 8 more ounces and then recheck. I'm using this measuring container here. It's just a lot easier than having to check on the bottle. Alright, we're about 3/4 of the way up. Probably won't be able to see that, but that's 2 quarts plus another 20 ounces. And I could put some more in, but I'm going to stop there for now, and then I'll run it and then recheck it. So that means there's only about 8 to 10 ounces of old oil left in the engine in this dry sump system. So that's pretty darn good. I got almost all the oil out just with a regular dumping of the oil bag. One thing I want to point out is that with every oil change, you're supposed to clean the tappet oil screen, which is right in here. I have to buy a drag link to get that off and retorque it. So as soon as I pick one up, I'll probably do a video on that. You unscrew that, pull out the spring and the screen, clean it up, and then reinstall it and torque it down. Okay, well, you saw how small the drain plug was on the primary side. Well, the transmission has the same drain plug. It's a very tiny, easily damaged plug, and they were both pretty gnarled up. Very little left to grab onto with the Allen keys. So rather than do an easy out, I'm going to attempt to pump out my transmission fluid with this Harbor Freight pump I just bought. It's called a multi-use transfer pump. Gets good reviews, looks to be a pretty good unit, so we're going to give that a shot right now. Okay, now put that down on the ground. So we'll see what happens. Here we go. Okay, we're starting to get some out the other end. There's a lot of air in these tubes. Okay, so the Harbor Freight pump actually worked really well. I didn't get out as much as I thought I would, so I'm going to be careful as to how much I put back in. So I don't know if it was just that low or I couldn't get all of it out. But it was pumping strong. Then eventually I just started getting little spurts and then just air. So we'll see. I'll fill it slowly and keep checking. Alright, well, I got her back up to the full level, but it didn't take anywhere near 16 ounces. So I'm thinking that you can't pump out everything by going in the side cover here where the dipstick goes in, because I pumped it dry, but there's got to be more back in the main part of the tranny that you can't get to from here on the side cover. So I could ride it like this. I did get about probably 7 ounces out of the 16 that it holds, but I think I might try a needle nose pliers, and if that doesn't work, a easy out on the drain plug, and then replace the drain plug with a new one and get all the fluid out. So that'll do it for now. So these older bikes are kind of a bitch to work on. The fittings and everything on the newer bikes are much more robust and easier to work with. So this was a bit of a challenge, but I got her done. And like I said, I may follow up with that transmission drain plug and do something a little different. But for now, I got some clean fluid in there, and I'm good to go. So probably tomorrow I'll fire it up, take it for a little ride, and then check for leaks. So that'll do it, guys, for this installment of the BCR Garage Series. Have a good night, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later, guys.